Today, I want to share with you how to build and play your own scales, even if you don't know any music theory. Now, I can already hear some of you wondering, but Ivan, there's already all these online warm-ups, there's these YouTube exercises that I can follow. Why should I learn to play it by myself? Now, you're right, there is an abundance of these scales, and it can be really easy and it can be really convenient when you are on the go. But the problem that I have with this is so much of learning to sing initially is through deliberate practice. And what that means is, say if you're doing a scale and you don't do it correctly, maybe you strained a bit, maybe you missed the note, being able to correct it is really, really important. And this means maybe you have to slow it down, maybe this actually means you have to repeat the scale, or maybe even finding an easier variation. And so when you're running through a YouTube warm-up, sometimes it's a bit hard to self-correct. And yes, I get it, it's going to take some time for you to get used to the piano, get used to playing these scales, but I promise you this is a skill that's going to pay off long-term when it comes to developing your voice. Now, real quick, my name is Ivan. I'm a voice teacher who works with students from all around the world. And really on this channel, my goal is to make learning how to sing as simple and as easy as possible. And so if that is up your lane, consider subscribing wherever you're joining me from. If you're interested in improving your voice faster with less of the headaches, I've got links down in the description on how you can work with me. And I've also got some self-study programs that you can work through. Anyway, let's dive in. Now, the first thing here is let's just understand how the piano works, right? So say if I start on the C, as I move towards the right, you notice the pitch goes a bit higher. And so of course, as we go towards the left, the pitch goes down. And so this is really all we need to know, because as I said at the beginning, you don't need to understand music theory in order to play your own scales. All you need to do is to be able to count and recognize a pattern. And to help you with this, I'm going to share with you two of the most common exercises, and I'll show you how to build them. So the first scale here I'm going to share with you is something called the major triad scale, or I personally call it the 1-3-5 scale. And it sounds a bit like this. And it should probably sound quite familiar because they're used in a lot of YouTube warm-ups. Now, I'm playing the C, I'm playing the E, I'm playing the G, and back to the E, back to the C. But how did I know what notes to play? For those of you who know a bit of music theory, you realize that this is the first, the third, and the fifth note of the C major scale. But what if you don't know this music theory? How would you build this scale? So how I encourage my students to think about this is look at the distance between those notes, right? There is a pattern that I can follow here. So for example, if I look at the note C, to get to the E, it's really 1, go to the C sharp, 2, go to the D3, 3 steps, I go to the D sharp 3, 4 steps to get to the E, right? So it's the C, then I jump up 4 steps, and to get to the G, I just jump up 3 steps. And we start to see that really a scale is just a pattern. I've got the starting note, plus 4, plus 3, minus 3, minus 4. You can just kind of walk back down. Now the really cool part is once I understand this pattern, I can simply move up the piano and follow that exact same pattern. For example, say I'm starting here on the C sharp 3, 4 steps up would be the F. And then 3 steps up would be the G sharp. And so really the scale becomes. Now notice how it sounds quite similar to, it's just a tiny bit higher. And I can apply this logic to really any note. Say if I started on this F3. 1, 2, 3, 4. I get the A3. 1, 2, 3. I get the C4. So I get F, A, C, A, F. It still sounds the same. As long as I just follow this pattern and I just work up the piano, train my range, walk back down, this is all you need to do. Now let's take this another step further, because I feel like the 1-3-5 scale can feel a bit short sometimes. What if we wanted to stretch our voice even more? This is where we're going to add an extra note on the top, and we're going to call this the 1-3-5-8 scale. Now check this out, right? So if I start on the exact same 1-3-5 scale, I play the C, I play the E, I play the G, and then I add 5 steps on top of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I get that C4 here. This gives me a slightly longer scale. C, E, G, C, back to the G, back to the E, back to the C. As long as I follow that pattern, starting note, plus 4, plus 3, and then a plus 5, or I'm really just thinking the octave above. Notice how it's a C sharp 4, and the starting note was a C#3. This gives me a longer scale that I can play around with. Now, for those of you who want to take it another step further, right, even from just these two scales, the 1-3-5 and the 1-3-5-8 scale, you can actually build out a lot of variations to tailor it to your voice. Say, for example, I wanted to make the scale a bit harder. I wanted to stay on that top note and just hang out there a bit longer. So what you can do here, say, for example, if I go to this 1-3-5 scale starting from the D, I can just repeat the top note a couple of times. No, 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 no. I can repeat it a couple of times to really lock in that top note and make the scale a bit more challenging. But what if the opposite is true? Say I wanted to make the scale a bit easier. Say, for example, I notice when I'm going up the piano, it actually feels harder to get to the notes. I feel like I'm straining a bit more compared to when I just come top down. This is a pretty common occurrence when you start to experiment with these scales. So what I can do here is, why don't we just start with where we find it easier? And because we already know how to play the scale, let's just go top down. No, no, no. Find that, make that feel really easy. And then I can just simply walk up again. No, 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 no. Just see if I can walk back up and use that top-down version to teach me. Now, another common thing you can do is you can start to skip notes. Say, for example, I've got this 1-3-5 scale, but I'm feeling a bit dangerous. I want to see if I can make that bigger jump without having to gradually walk up to it. Cool, let's just skip that middle note and we'll go from the D, the A, to the D. Because you've already played the 1-3-5, you've already played maybe even the 1-3-5-8, you can start to tweak it to your own. And so, in summary, learning to play your own scales is really important. It allows you to practice much, much more deliberately. But you don't need to understand a lot of music theory to get you going. All you need to do is be able to recognize that pattern and count those notes. Yes, it's going to take time to learn how to play these scales. It might take time to learn how to coordinate this, and it might even cost a little bit of money to get a cheap, digital piano. But I promise you, this is a skill that will pay off long term when it comes to developing your voice. I've also shared with you two scales that you can already get started with: the 1-3-5 scale, the 1-3-5-8, and really it's just a simple pattern of the starting note, a +4, then a +3. If you want to add that extra note, +5, and you walk back down. But I encourage you can always get creative and build your own versions of these scales. Anyway, that is all. If you found this episode useful, please share this with a friend. If you're listening from the podcast, leaving a 5-star review really, really means the world to me. If you're looking to improve your voice faster with less of the headaches, once again, links down in the description on how you can work with me privately. Apart from that, my name is Ivan. I'm your voice teacher.